Hi, my name is Matt Fernley, editor of Battery Materials Review, and here's all the key news in the world of battery materials this month. Welcome to October's edition of the Recharge podcast. We have mutually agreed that we aren't going to talk about our absence last month and whose fault it was. So we have got lots to talk about this month. So without further ado, let me welcome my partner in crime, Cormac O'Laoire, MD of Electrios Energy, and let us get cracking. Hi, Cormac.
Hi, Matt. Glad we could get it together this month.
Yeah, get it together is the definite thing. Yeah,
it's the silver, gold, and platinum months. October, November, December. It's the big sales in the battery and EV business. So this is
this is the key month.
Rubber
This is
meets
where
the
we
road.
needed to get in front of our listeners.
Exactly.
Providing they're still listening and haven't buggered off to someone else's podcast, but
Yeah,
we
they
hope
may
you're
well
still
have.
out there. Okay, cool. We're recording this just at the back end of LME week, and you were in London and I was in London, but we didn't see one another. What's your any interesting takeaways from LME week?
Yeah. LME week involves all the metals, and I'm more interested in the critical side of things. So I attended a number of the sideline events, and I did notice there was a lot of talk about every other metal except battery metals in terms of
You went
non-ferrous
to the wrong
metals.
event, mate.
I'm hearing a lot about aluminum, copper, of
Mhm.
course. Copper is going to be right up there with gold pretty soon.
Yeah.
That was one of the big takeaways of the week. I went to a very nice event held by the Saudi government,
Mhm.
and another event held by the Indonesians. And
Mhm.
they're looking for investment. And Indonesia is getting a bit sick of being known as a nickel hub, from what I gathered, and they're looking
Right.
for. They also have, I think they said, 23 other critical minerals or metals, and they more than welcome investment in those sectors. So I think they're pushing big on copper, zinc, silver, and gold.
Manganese. I heard there was a manganese project in
Well,
Indonesia
that's
as
the
well.
first I heard about it. I've been wondering about it. I don't think they have any manganese, but it's news to
Uh,
me.
oh well, maybe they do. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, for me, I went to three or four of the battery materials presentations at LME Week, and one thing that stood out for me is I think the significant sort of contrast in opinions in the sector is bigger than I've ever seen it. So just looking at some of the sort of analysts and consultants I follow, I mean, some of them are rabidly bullish on the lithium outlook, really rabidly bullish, and some of them are rabidly bearish, and some of them have flipped around to more bullish, and some of them have flipped around to more bearish. And you are sort of
Yeah.
sitting there scratching your head, going, "Well, how can we have such a significant um, spread of opinions in the space?"
Yeah, I did see a little of that. I did see, lithium obviously was something I did see a few present. It depends on who you're going to see, analyst wise. Man, there's a
Yeah.
big spread between Chinese analysts, UK analysts, and European analysts. I mean, the spread is
Well,
right
don't
there. From
forget the
some,
US analysts as well, because
yeah,
there's quite
well,
quite a lot of very bearish US analysts out
well,
there.
my wallet isn't that deep to go see the US analysts, unfortunately.
You have to go to PDAC, mate. That's the one for the North American analysts. I think
Yeah.
the Canadians are probably screaming at me now, going, it's Canada, but you do get a lot of US analysts at PDAC as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to the SMM presentation and the benchmark presentation, and
I was at the SM presentation, so I don't know how we missed each other there.
well, I was Billy No Mate sitting at the back, but
I was
again,
front
I
row.
was
with the
really
questions.
surprised by the I wasn't surprised that SMM are relatively bearish on lithium because they have been for a while. But benchmark was still quite conservative on lithium, I noted. And they've had a very strong call on ESS and a reasonable call on EVs as well. And some of the other consultants I found were quite conservative as well. So it is going to be very, very interesting because there's some, I would say, more non-traditional guys out in the market saying, look, demand is very, very strong. Inventories are starting to fall, and it's really starting to kick off. I mean, I don't want to sit on the fence, but from
You
the
know,
from the
yeah.
data that I'm tracking, I haven't really seen the sort of drop in inventories I'd be wanting to see before I got really excited about the space. But we will know within 2 to 3 months
Yeah, exactly.
whether this strong demand event, as strong as many commentators are saying, is coming through or not. And if inventories are at their current level by the end of this year, then it ain't happening. And if inventories drop by 30 or 40% by the end of this year, then it could very well be happening. So we'll be keeping a very close eye on lithium inventory levels. What about other materials? What are you seeing in there?
Well, lithium, maybe the bellwether in this one, I guess. But you're right. A lot of people left an egg on their face last month, calling the end of the lithium winter and all that. So
Hmm.
it's not surprising seeing a lot of analysts sitting on the fence because they just can't call it. But
Yeah,
we're based in Hong Kong, so mostly focus in the Asian markets, China, Korea. On the kind of demand levels we've seen there. And the demand looks like it's picking up in both markets with the outlooks that we're seeing. But we'll keep running into government policies. China's ending its scrappage scheme at the end of the year,
yeah,
so expect to see a lot of EVs sold between now and then. Production levels are up in EVs. I think I just posted on LinkedIn over 1 million battery electric vehicles were produced in China in September, which is
yeah.
phenomenal.
I mean, I think the exciting area in EVs at the moment is rest of the world. So, I mean, China is doing all right,
Yeah.
but I think we are running into a situation whereby we're running into very tough year-on-year comparisons. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see year-on-year growth rates actually falling towards the back end of this year. But it doesn't mean that China isn't growing EV sales. It just means it's growing them a little bit slower because of the base effect. But I mean, the strength that we've seen in the rest of the world over the last sort of 3 or 4 months is like, wow. And I saw a data point recently that something like 100% of BYD's growth this year comes from exports.
Yeah, well, they just built six, sorry, EV transporters.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
quite big.
yeah.
Um,
Apparently, the capacity is 1 million units a year over those 8 car carriers.
yeah.
Uh,
And big BYD EV factories set to open towards the end of this year. I think the one in is it Hungary is opening towards the end of this year, and then they've got
yeah,
a couple of other ones opening as well. So I think
Spain.
BYD is moving to become very international, and perhaps the first of the Chinese car makers to become so international.
Yeah, I mean we're seeing EVE going to Spain or Hungary as well. And CATL, of course, setting up there.
Mm.
I believe they're getting ready to commission. I mean, once those factories are up and going, Europe is second after China in battery production. US is a little bit ahead right now, but yeah, I mean, the Chinese aren't allowed in the US, but they are going to be here in Europe. Cars and batteries. So we're handing the European market to them essentially at this stage. Uh,
Yeah, well, because we made such a, excuse my French, balls up of doing it ourselves effectively. Anyway, we won't go into that before a whole bunch of Europeans are throwing stuff at me as
I don't
well.
think we have any European listeners, right?
Yeah. Um, I guess an interesting time to do the podcast because we've obviously had the back end of last week, the imposition of export controls out of China on fourth and fifth generation LFP and some graphite materials, and obviously on rare earths as well. I guess we won't talk too much about rare earths because I kind of feel like the rare earth space has been done to death. But very important for some of these graphite projects that were set to, or not graphite projects, anode material projects that were set to launch outside China utilizing Chinese technology. And obviously very, very important from the point of view of exporting fourth and fifth generation LFP into potentially Europe and other countries. Any thoughts on that, LFP in particular?
Well, yeah. I mean, fourth generation is like 2% of the LFP being produced in China right now. I mean, it's
Mm.
majority is second and third
Right.
generation in their home market. I think this is just a protection move because they haven't even established that themselves yet. I mean, so I mean, it could benefit, right? The NMC technology, right? So
Yeah.
if these restrictions don't change, I think it will. And I was saying something else during the week. You know, it's the first time that China really pulled this trigger to show that you know, we could stop the source of your battery materials and your batteries, the high energy density batteries. So now it really lays down the marker that we need to develop this ex-China supply chain because this could be pulled anytime in the future.
Yeah.
And the only supply chain we can really develop that we have the skills, equipment is the NMC ternary supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
And
only
I
way
mean, I
it's
think,
truly independent.
you know, the tragic thing about the graphite and anode material thing is it's not like we didn't already have a dry run in this, you know, at the end of 23. You know, we already knew that there was a good chance that this would happen. And in the intervening 18 months to 2 years, what did we do about it? Absolutely zip all. So, you know, we have a situation now where if the Chinese wanted to turn off supply of anode material, they could turn off the supply of 99% of anode material that is used in the world. And basically, they could turn off every single ex-China battery plant, lithium-ion battery plant, if they wanted to. And that's a pretty tragic position to be in, eh?
Well, hopefully, POSCO will be able to help us out a little bit there. But yeah, that's the current state of affairs for sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I mean, we really do need to sort of get cracking on this. We've been talking a good game for 2 years, but we really haven't seen the funding. And this all sort of comes back to an area that I ended up talking about quite a lot at LME Week and sort of in the conferences I've done recently, which is this big funding gap in battery raw materials, really across the board. I mean, lithium, graphite, anode materials, high purity manganese, to some extent nickel as well. It really is very, very difficult to get these projects off the ground because investors look at the price, normally the Chinese price, and they go, well, that's very, very low. That's not above your incentive price. There's no way I'm going to fund this project because I'm not going to get my money back. And we, as in the West, have to find a way to surmount this problem. And obviously, the Trump administration has come in with the deal with MP Materials and put the price floor in for rare earths. What can they do in battery raw materials? There you go. There's a hospital
Well,
path forward.
what they have been doing, and it kind of frustrates me a little bit, is this, and European Union just called for it again. We need to innovate on materials production here in Europe or and US. It's the same in US, and so we get lost in this cycle of innovation, trying to do things better and cheaper and greener than the Chinese when you know how long the innovation cycle is. You're not actually building any industrial platforms to actually make materials that are required over the next
Yeah.
20 years. These innovations are fine at a certain level. And a lot of funding is going to innovations. You know, we work with a lot of VCs It's noble enough where, they're using banana skins and orange peels to make some sort of cathode material, but it's a long cycle and that's where we see a lot of funding going on our end is um, there's a lot of money available for innovative ideas in the battery space, but that's not industrial ideas. What we're seeing in China. China does it the opposite. They build like CATLs build industrial scales and then pours significant portion after they start generating profits into their R&D and does it that way. We're
Yeah.
innovating first and then trying to scale.
Yeah, and I think I mean, that's the wrong way around. It's the wrong way around with regulation in Europe as well. And I mean, we've talked about this before, how the Chinese build the industry and then put in place the regulation once they've got the industry to critical mass. And I mean,
Nothing
we've
to
done it,
regulate. Yeah,
yeah,
there's nothing to regulate right
absolutely the
now.
wrong way around. I mean,
Yeah.
over-regulated makes it impossible to build an industry.
Yeah, well, we're trying to do it a different way. It just hasn't
Mm.
worked.
Yeah,
That's what we're encountering.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this year's LME, if we're talking about sentiment, was a little bit of a down sentiment or downer on the whole lithium battery metal supply chain. I mean, because the nickel
Yeah.
guys aren't happy because nickel prices are down. The lithium guys aren't happy. EV guys aren't happy. Slightly sluggish demand, and throw on top of varying policies and tariffs and this battle between US and China. It's just Europe's caught in the middle.
But the ESS guys are ecstatic. We should mention that.
Yeah, well, yeah, ecstatic is the word for that. But then the theme there also is decouple from China as much as possible as well, which can be done in terms of all the auxiliary equipment, but cells, you can source cells from Southeast Asia now, but of Chinese origin.
Of Chinese origin, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I don't know
like
about
when you see all the critical materials things, and they go, "Well, nickel's all right because Indonesia controls whatever it is, 70% of the world's nickel production," and you're like, "Well, yeah, but those are all Chinese companies." So yeah, you can get batteries from Indonesia now, but they're all controlled by Chinese companies.
Yeah, well, they're the right type of batteries, nickel. So that's the you know the I just was reading it in your BMR about the European and Indonesia signing the free trade agreement. I think that's a pretty good step
Mm.
to again securing supply for Europe, and that's just pointing the finger. The NMC is going to be, or nickel-based batteries are going to be the secure point for EV batteries in Europe. That's the chosen material,
Yeah.
and
I
if
mean,
you
I
speak
think
to OEMs,
Benchmark
yeah.
made quite an important point in their presentation. They did a very good presentation at the event they did this week. And the point that they made is, yes, LFP is gaining massive traction in the global EV market, but it is primarily because it has enormous traction in China and in Chinese exports to the rest of the world. It is not gaining particular traction in either Europe or the US, where NMC is still the primary technology. I would say NMC, also NCA,
Yeah. You know
obviously, but
what?
yeah,
I show the Chinese exports every month. Ternary batteries are the number one export out of China,
yeah,
70%. Now that's just individual batteries, not what's in LFP
not
or
in a car. Yeah,
yeah, but um, yeah, I mean, makes sense that the demand for LFP is going to be there for sure. But the new trend coming out, not a new trend, but the current trend, especially with the premium cars, is this mix. So you get the blending LFP and NMC, and even
best of both worlds.
yeah, you got charging, performance, and low temperature performance as well. You get best of both worlds. I was talking to CATL recently, and they have no to your face anyway. They're backing no horse. It's words used were we'll make whatever the customer wants. So they'll do sodium, they'll do LFP, they'll do FMP. It depends what the customer wants. But Robin Zhang recently was highlighting their recent work in high nickel, and they'll be releasing
Mm.
4680 cells, I think, with high nickel. I mean, so when you think they're all in an LFP, they go and pull this switch card out, but
That's
they
interesting.
they are all in on these hybrid type. I can't tell if it's cells or packs, but LFP NMC mix. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, potentially that is the way forward rather than being, very specialized, be a little bit more sort of commoditized, and then that's a better solution for everybody. While we're talking about different chemistries, I guess we should get on to sodium ion, which the amount of column inches sodium ion gets at the moment, you would honestly think that it was the dominant chemistry in the world, but not so much, really.
I was in a panel last week, and the closing question for the five panelists is, what do you think the dominant chemistry is going to be in 2035? Now, we're at this a while, Matt. You know how quickly those dates come around.
Yeah.
And all four but me said LFP and sodium. And there's absolutely no way there's going to be a sodium supply chain up to that level in the next 10 years.
Mm.
So obviously I said NMC. Just your average NMC, but I couldn't believe they're that bullish on sodium.
Well, I mean, for me, sodium is, uh, it's ESS if lithium ion, if LFP prices increase substantially from here, but if they don't, then LFP is more competitive than sodium ion at current prices. And in EVs, there just isn't the power. I mean, we hear a lot about how sodium ion could take off in two and three wheelers, but I was talking to an Indian two-wheeler manufacturer about 18 months ago, and I asked him about sodium ion. He said no chance because there's just not enough power in the battery. Maybe this is an India specific thing, but he said, when my clients, the riders, draw away from the traffic lights or the stop sign or something, they want to accelerate fast, and you can't do that with a sodium ion battery. So, yeah, I mean, we
Not
hear
sure
a lot
that's
about
true,
them, but
but
I just wonder how viable it actually
well,
is going to be.
yeah, I mean, I was talking to, the sodium ion production has it doubles every year. It was like 3.5 gigawatt hours last year. It's going to be
Yeah.
seven this year. It's already went past 3.5 earlier this year.
Mm.
And that's a long road to get to
Yeah,
the 1 terawatt hour in 10 years. The
yeah,
biggest concern I have is the supply chain. We can't even create a lithium ion battery supply chain with only two chemistries to choose from. Sodium ion has got a number of cathodes you could choose from.
mm.
And I just don't see a meaningful supply chain set up in 10 years
Well, I mean, it's the
for
anode as well, because you
oh, the anode
effectively
even,
need a
yeah.
hard carbon anode. Fine, you can make it out of used coconut shells, but how many bloody used coconut shells are there around the world to make enough
Around
anode
Croydon,
material?
yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's the other thing. How many, what's the production of hard carbon for graphite anodes? I think it's quite low right now,
There's
right?
not a lot. There's not a lot. I know that a couple of sort of European sort of paper and pulp and paper companies were looking into hard anode production from in Northern Europe, and I understand that could take off, but again, what are the costs and how quickly can you lower those costs? And as we know, it took what 15 years to get costs down to a reasonable level in lithium ion. How long is it going to take in sodium ion?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's supply chain's number one. Maybe you could have the greatest tech in the world, but as you know, it's the supply chain. The weakest link in the supply chain will let you down. And re over the last 6 months, a large number of sodium ion battery startups. I mean, they're not new startups. Some are at least 10 years old, if not, I think one was at least 15, have gone under,
Yeah,
unable to survive this low price LFP environment.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it is. It certainly has been it has wrung a lot of early stage companies out, and it's unfortunate. You feel very sorry for these management teams who put their life and soul into developing these projects.
It's
But
just all about timing. Yeah, but I
yeah,
think there will obviously be niche market for sodium ion. But even if you compete against LFP, then you got to compete against Chinese sodium ion, which I don't think there's any export bans on right now. So,
mm,
or tariffs. So you got that to contend with in the future. If
Just
you
wait and see, wait and see. Okay, I did want to just flag, and we talked a little bit briefly about graphite earlier. I did want to flag one really interesting data point, which is ExxonMobil's move into synthetic graphite with the Superior Graphite acquisition. It was quite an interesting move, given ExxonMobil is a gazillions billion-dollar company, and to go into the anode material space, which is definitely not a gazillions and gazillions of dollars market, seemed to me like an interesting move. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Superior Graphite are interesting company. I think they're 50 years old, if not older. I know, 100
Mm.
years old. I'm just happened to be on their LinkedIn page right now. 100 years old. But they have a very interesting, innovative tech for producing artificial graphite.
Yeah, I
Much
mean, I know the
existing.
company quite well. They've
Oh, yeah.
done a lot of work in the industrial graphite space over the last sort of 20 odd years or so, and are very well thought of.
Yeah.
They've been trying to sort of push into battery graphite. I know Exxon has come out into the market and said they have a very interesting synthetic graphite technology. So, I mean, it'd be very, I keep saying interesting, but it will be interesting to see if they can bring it through. And you talk about sort of cost of capital in projects and how difficult it is to get these things funded, but you know, a sort of 200, 300, $400 million anode material plant is nothing for a company like Exxon.
Yeah.
So can they come in and make the difference? And it obviously makes sense for them because obviously one of the raw materials for synthetic graphite is petroleum coke, which is obviously a refinery product. So I imagine that Exxon have got quite a lot of that.
Yeah, I believe they have a graphite train operational. I think it's pilot level or slightly larger.
Mm,
And the tech is supposed to be relatively in terms of equipment required is readily available and Chinese independent. And I don't think that they use high temperature graphite furnaces for the graphitization. I don't have the full details on it, but obviously Exxon saw something quite interesting.
yeah, yeah,
But not all pet coke is the same, right? So I wonder where they'll source the pet coke from.
yeah, yeah.
The high
Okay.
sulfur is a problem, right?
Moving on from graphite, let's talk a little bit about end markets. EV sales. We sort of talked earlier about how the rest of the world is going down. You talked a little bit about the end of the scrappage scheme in China. Can you just talk a little bit more about that and how things are happening in the Chinese market at the moment?
Yeah, it's quite similar to the end of the Section 30D in US for the 7,500 subsidy. So Tesla just posted record sales
Sales for
quarter. Yeah.
August and September. Yeah.
We're expecting to see something similar in China, as the scrappage scheme is um, it's central government led, but it comes down to the provinces as well. And
Yeah.
a lot of the major provinces are beginning to end the scrappage scheme, but the more remote provinces are because central government's trying to drive more EVs into the countryside.
Right.
So some will remain in those areas, but they're not very large sales numbers.
Nice
But
pun there. I like that. Um, okay. Yeah, and we'd heard a number of sort of reports about people trying to game the scrappage scheme. So this was one of the reasons why they sort of called a halt in some of the bigger cities recently. What are
not
you hearing
surprised.
about sort of inventory levels in EVs in China? Or are they
Yeah,
sticking them all in?
still quite high, still quite high. I think on the data we see that it can be up to 100,000 difference between production and sales
Right.
a month in China. Hard to tell what that is. Sometimes the inventory is sold at a different time of the year. A lot of it goes, as you said earlier, so say production is 1 million, which it did in BEVs this year, 200,000 of those were exported.
Mm.
Which is, as you said, huge number. ROW. I think this time last year, it was about 100,000 this time last year, total BEVs and PHEVs.
Mm.
So, BYD, as you said earlier, followed by BYD quite closely. BYD would be in a little bit of trouble right now if they didn't have such great ROW sales. And
Yeah.
I think they just announced they're going into Brazil as well, building a factory in Brazil
Yeah.
and Spain.
Yeah. Oh, Spain as well. Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think the other interesting thing in China this year is that it looks like we may have maxed out for now on PHEVs. We're seeing much
Yeah,
more higher growth in BEVs for now. Do you think that's off the back of the scrappage scheme or low oil prices, or what do you think that is?
well, they're reviewing the credits also for EV purchasing, which they're lowering as well, central government, and they're actually demanding higher performances of the PHEVs so you can get the EV purchase credit. Uh,
Right.
I think I shared it on LinkedIn, but most of the PHEVs right now do not make the minimum requirements, which is coming in January to achieve there's a legacy part of that credit where you can, if you bought it between a certain date, you can still claim it. But
Right.
yeah, um, it's unclear to me why there'd be such a drop off in the PHEVs. It's not really a drop off; it's stagnated, I'd say, more than anything else, right?
Yeah. It's not really a collapse. It's just that it's not growing as fast anymore, is it?
No, well, as in everything else in the battery supply chain, it came off there was a time there was no PHEVs in China, I think 10
Yeah.
years ago. It came off a low base,
Yeah.
screaming out. But maybe the EREVs are taking up a little sector, a part of that, but they still fall under the PHEVs. But other than BYD, I would say the production capability of the other Chinese EV manufacturers is quite low for
Mm.
EVs.
Yeah.
What do you
Okay.
think?
Okay. We can't go without talking about ESS, which just seems to be blowing the bloody doors off left, right, and centre at the moment. I mean, the growth rate in China this year has been pretty exceptional. What are you thinking going forward? I mean, obviously we've seen the recent legislative moves in ESS. Do you think it goes more gangbusters next year, or do you think it sort of slows down a little bit
Well,
in
yeah,
terms of
it's
rate of
two
growth?
years to put 180 gigawatt hours of storage on, right? Is
Yeah.
the central government plan, and that's a huge number. It's going to be, I mean, that's going to happen. That's starting right now. I mean, they
Yeah.
have never missed a target, not in anything related of any of the sectors I've been observing in the battery
Well,
business.
no, I mean in this space they tend to beat the targets with
Yeah,
years to spare. So yeah, I mean if they're going to do this, that's a big target, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, I'm quite worried for some of our customers because those targets will hoover up all the best batteries in China if this
Yeah.
goes ahead. I mean, the Chinese best production might be somewhere between 300 and 400 gigawatt hours if you're lucky, but more closer to three, I think.
Mm.
And that will be the entire global supply going into China. So you might expect a kind of a dart of supply for the rest of ROW in that case, because the Chinese will do as central government wants them to do, and that is to hit this target. So they might be difficult
And
to
and
source.
what's the target again in
It's
words that aren't scary?
180 something. I have to pull it up. 180 something gigawatt hours, 26, 27. 2 years to put all that online. It's phenomenal. It'll be the biggest. And besides that, you have massive projects. There's one in the UK, a big one coming in the UK is 3.5 gigawatt hours. You got
3.5 gigawatt hours, mate. That's tiny. Check out the
That's
Saudis.
over 5 years. Hang on. And then you have the Middle East have gigantic projects as well.
Mhm.
One of our problems for our clients is sourcing 314 cells, amp hour cells, from even if even tier two battery makers. It's quite difficult at
Mhm.
the moment. So. But what we're working on, Best has been probably one of our better businesses. working on. So now, to put cells into containers, kind of the lowest hanging fruit, and a lot of companies globally are more than happy to do that, like
Yeah.
integrators, but on a much larger level. So there'll be conglomerates with, who are already in the grid, infrastructure business, or some part
But
of
I
the
mean,
power
it's
ecosystem.
been very difficult for instance, the US integrators, because obviously in the past you had companies like Fluence and Powin that were very good at doing that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
then obviously that the battery makers got into that business as well, so they now make their own containers with their own sort of battery management systems and everything else. So I mean, how easy is it for the old style integrators to actually compete in that business?
Yeah, well, most of that business for us is from the Middle East, and I think they can get that market if they want it. They're large power companies in the Middle East, uh,
Mm.
so I think that option's available to them if they make basically they're their own end customer,
Mm.
and they have like gigantic gigantic labor force of electrical engineers. They seem quite confident they can build best containerized system plants, and just integrate the cells themselves. So that would like push a lot of people like Fluence and Powen now, which is FlexGen, I think, out of those markets. It's more kind of closed markets in that case, but they're just not seeing a lot of value in just buying the whole container
Yeah.
from China. But yeah, I mean, as you said, right? And also, most players, non-Chinese, it's ODM, it's contract manufacturing. They don't even make the energy storage systems themselves either. Goes out to contract manufacturing in Vietnam and other places. So it's a bit of a race to the bottom. We've seen it one time, and it looks like we're going to see it again.
Okay. That
On
was
that cheery note.
fascinating. We will, I think we'll call it a day there. So I will say thank you very much to Cormac, and we'll try and do this again next month. We'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, thanks very much, and
Thanks,
speak
Matt.
soon.
Talk to you soon.
So that brings us to the end of our podcast for October. As always, you can get more detail on any of the topics we've discussed, and indeed many more that we don't have time to discuss on a monthly basis in the latest issue of Battery Materials Review, which you can find at www.batterymaterialsreview.com. I'm Matt Fernley, editor of Battery Materials Review, and this has been Recharge. Thanks for listening.